Hello, friends, and welcome back to Becoming Unbound, the podcast where we talk everything to do with breaking free, whether that is leaving a 9 to 5, getting yourself unstuck from old mindsets, or even leaving that relationship that is no longer serving you. We talk about it all. Real, unfiltered, raw conversations all about how we are breaking the mold in society and busting out of those boxes that society just loves to put us in. So today I am super excited. Today I have Justine Realized on the podcast today. She is a powerhouse when it comes to understanding the feminine and how to really embody all aspects of the feminine. We're not just talking about pretty pink dresses here. We are talking every part of the feminine that maybe society isn't quite ready to talk about yet. And I'm so happy to welcome her on the podcast. She is also a podcast host of the Arcane Muse Collective, and she is just doing wonderful things in the world of conscious relationship, conscious awareness, and really diving into that feminine energy. So you are going to love this conversation. Let's dive in. Justine, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, Carly. I'm happy to be here.
And welcome to my home. We are once again in my living room. I'm absolutely loving having these in-person conversations. They just feel amazing. I'm so happy that you could come on down here to do it.
In real life is where it's at, right?
Yeah.
It's nice to get back to face-to-face as often as we can. I'm happy to make the drive into the city to be here with you. And this is adorable. You've done a really good job. So
thank you. Yeah, I love putting this all together. And like I was explaining to you before, was that like I've basically been putting myself through my own podcasting school, if you could call it that. And it's been really fun to kind of understand what goes into everything as a podcast production manager. But to really dive in to do it all myself feels absolutely amazing. And yeah, just what an experience. I feel like the way to learn is through experience. And so as you saw me like setting everything up, it's such a fun, great thing to like be so immersed in.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been super fun doing all this. So welcome. I'm so happy that you're here today. We are going to be sipping on delicious cups of cacao that you brought. Thank you so much. Yeah. So I just wanted to start off. Why don't you let's talk about how we met, maybe sort of what you're up to these days, and give the listeners a little bit of a insight as to how this conversation came about.
Well, we met at a very fun festival. I don't know if it was a couple years ago, I think now.
Probably 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 years ago. And I mean, obviously we have a lot of things in common.
Yeah.
We like to dance. We like cacao. We like freedom.
Yep.
We like human rights, I think we can agree on.
Yeah.
And using our voices as not only just humans, but as women as well, to really activate that throat chakra and say what needs to be said. I think it's really important that women continue to use their voices when advocating for the life they want, or just anything for themselves. It's the number one communicator is our voice. So I've never been nervous to use my voice in my life. So speaking on things that are I'm passionate about, and engaging in conversations and dialogues with people who even challenge me, I'm open to. I think that's dialogue is super important in our species, to continue respectfully dialoguing, whether we agree on something or not, and also having the capacity to open our minds and open our hearts for, different perspectives that allow us to continue to expand our awareness and ourselves. So, yeah. And then what I've been up to, I mean, I'm a mom of 3. So I have 2 boys and a girl. My oldest just turned 12, which is wild to me because I'm obviously, not a seasoned parent, but I'm like a good halfway through the childhood, and it's definitely crazy to watch them grow. Like every 5 years, they're like a completely new person. Because 5 years ago, he was like, what? I don't know, 7.
Yeah.
And that 7-year-old is so different than the 12-year-old, but it's such a short amount of time. So it's actually freaking me out quite a bit that in 5 years, he's going to be 17. And in 2 years, he'll be taller than me, most likely. So they keep me busy. They are my greatest challenge in life. They carry different aspects of myself that end up being a mirror for myself. So it's pretty wild to see myself reflected in my own 3 children and recognizing myself and being like, oh, like this triggers me. And that's because it's part of who I am and what I need to look at. So, having that awareness when you're raising children that they're not, just extensions of you, they're actually here to allow you to go deeper into your own soul and your own self. So that's been quite the journey. And then more recently, I've developed a collective with a couple of women who, we're all passionate about sharing the gifts that we were born into this world with. And for me, I think that my gift is having conversations with people and helping people expand their awareness. I'm really passionate about becoming aware of ourselves and our behavior patterns and our triggers and our traumas and all of the things that play into how we navigate this world and relate to each other. And so conscious relationships, and by conscious, I just mean that you are expanding your capacity to see how you relate to another. So rather than, shutting down in a conflict or something, something like that as example, is really getting curious about the other person and how you relate to each other and being able to have the humility to not always take everything as a personal attack. And so I'm super passionate about learning more about relating in the best way that I can to other people. And then with the Arcane Youth Collective, we started that almost a year ago, and we really just want to serve humanity and cats.
She wants her voice to be heard as well. She is.
Maybe she's resonating with.
She's got it. Yeah.
She's the most beautiful eyes. Yeah. So we decided to. It's funny because one of our founding members knows a lot about human design. Which I don't know if you're familiar with, but human design is astrology based, right? And there's like 5, I think, different kind of energy types. And each of us in this collective are a different energy type. Really interesting. So we learn about working with each other energetically, like, what a manifestor is really good at, what a manifesting generator is really good at, what a generator is good at, all of that stuff. So the idea was we would collaborate and really cross promote each other's gifts. And then we thought of doing a podcast, and we called it Goldcast. We started doing this whole pre-recorded, edited stuff on Spotify, and then we shifted to doing it live. And that has been super fun and super, again, lots of learning involved in producing anything, but the switching to a live format has just added a lot more comedy, I would say. Nice. And, off the cuff, random side quests of thoughts and tangents that we will go on, but all with the desire to add value to our listeners' lives in the hopes of, again, expanding that awareness and perspective of, I didn't think about it that way. And that's what we've been up to lately.
Amazing. Yeah, that's super cool to take something and I think you've gone through a couple different transitions of the podcast, and I think it's really cool the live element is so beautiful and even more raw than this. You can have all sorts of different podcasting kind of, I think, ideas and things that come out of it, but what a cool idea to do it live.
Yeah, that started because our one member started doing stuff on Twitch. And I'd never heard of Twitch. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know it was a streaming platform. And so she started doing live sound baths, streaming live, doing, it's get ritual with me instead of get ready with me. And she would walk through, her meditation and then do some sounding and then just to, kind of share her gift that way virtually. And then we're like, why don't we just do almost like a talk show, like a live talk show, on air talk show where there isn't any editing and we're just whatever flows, it goes. I mean, we mess up all the time and it's hysterical. I mean, with the three of us, it can be hard to juggle how much each of us get to say because we're all like kind of adding in our own thought streams. But then I've started my own segment. So our Goldcast happens live on Thursdays, and then I started doing Muse Mondays on Mondays. So I would go on our Arcane Muse Collective channel on YouTube and Twitch and do my own personal segment where I take a feminine muse, a woman that inspires me, and kind of dive into why and the wisdom that she carries and why that has added to my life. And so my first muse was Mary Magdalene, which I have really enjoyed learning about. Resonate very much with her spirit and other women that were rebels in a time where women were stoned to death for being rebels. Mary Magdalene was obviously erased from the Jesus story and made into a prostitute, and she's not. She's not a prostitute. She's much more than that. So I'm just finishing that series on her, and I've done almost 9 episodes. So it's been fun.
That's amazing. Very cool.
And I'm doing that live too, which is a riot because I'm by myself and super awkward at times. I'm by myself, but it's fun.
Yeah, I find it really interesting. Like we have so much power with the world of online recordings and live streaming. And yet I feel like there's a little bit more power in the real life community setting. And I think I was watching this video with Gary Vee that he said that like the in-person services and like companionship community jobs are going to be so valuable in the coming years after the sort of boom of this big AI that I think we're living in right now. Like eventually even like care providers, like people to go on walks with, they are actually going to be the real life human is what will eventually be that next cycle where we're like paying so much just to go for a walk with a human being.
I think that's AI's purpose. I actually think that the more artificial intelligence that comes through, the more activated our souls are going to be. It's like the more technological it gets, the more rooted in my soul I'm going to get, the more value I see in another human than, just talking to AI.
Yeah.
Because it's a novelty at the beginning. I mean, ChatGPT was a novelty. Everyone was like, oh, look at this toy and this tool that we can use. But you have to have a high level of discernment and awareness to use that in a healthy way. I can see those vulnerable and susceptible to letting it get into the psyche a little too much and depending on it for certain things like companionship. There's such pros and cons to that. It's like, of course there's loneliness epidemics everywhere, and like talking to AI, if that gets someone through the day, I don't know, maybe it's better than not. But the more you do that, there's something to it that's missing. And that is the soul and the human component of like, there's an intelligence there, but it's not rooted in this soul that a human has. And so it might actually wake even more people up, like perhaps faster. Be like, oh, I see the difference now in our uniqueness.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. Like you talked about the idea of seeing different perspectives. And whenever I've used AI to help problem solve or help me with my job, like, or even sometimes help with like a little bit of like advice.
Right.
It's really interesting because it only gives one perspective. It will never, like I've asked it to play devil's advocate and it won't, like it will not give me another perspective other than one that validates my own experience.
Very agreeable.
Yes, very agreeable. And I'm like,
Very
no,
agreeable.
tell me like what's wrong with this.
Right.
Like, so I think again, like that idea that it's going to push us to one sort of way of the pendulum. And then I think, yeah, you're right. Like, instead of just looking at it as like doom and gloom, it's like sometimes these big pushes to one side of the pendulum allows us to balance out and we go to the other side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping that
I hope so too.
if not, it's just a sci-fi movie here on out.
Great.
We all know how they go.
Yeah.
The robots people fall in love with. So,
Oh God.
oh my goodness.
Well, I wanted to ask you because I'm super curious. Obviously, we have met through the idea of freedom. I think actually we had met very, very first at an alternative education conference in the middle of COVID, where there was parents, teachers, schools. We had all gathered to try to find a different way of doing school. And so that's kind of how I first remember connecting with you. And we've always kind of stayed in each other's lives through like events and then the festival. But I wondered about the idea of being shackled or like, I mean, you had already kind of busted out of that box and you were finding alternatives for your children and understanding that like there was different priorities than that you had compared to the mainstream, which were very okay with what was happening in public schools. But was there any other moments that kind of like awakened you to understanding that our world, maybe like the things that we've been told weren't exactly true, or that you were like, okay, I got to do something different here?
Yes. I would say before I pulled my kids out of public school during COVID, because there was no way I was going to force them on to do virtual learning
Yeah.
at the age of like 6. Like my oldest was like 6. Like no way. And then they never ever wore a mask either. None of my children ever wore masks, so that was never ever going to be allowed, in my opinion. So before COVID happened, I had moved to Maui. Um, my husband and I, we had our 2 boys. We sold a house. We sold everything, and then we wanted to move to Hawaii, which we did. He's American,
Mm-hmm.
and in Hawaii, in Maui, someone who I really looked up to told me something about vaccines that I had never, ever, ever heard of before,
Mm-hmm.
and completely blew my whole world open when I realized that I had not been given true informed consent prior to um, agreeing to have this done for my little babies. That I obviously trusted my doctor to supply me with what I thought I would have needed to give informed consent. But then I quickly realized that I was not given any information
Mm-hmm.
about these products. So that was probably one of my biggest times for awakening to the system that I was living in and brought up in and groomed and conditioned to be in, to be like, oh my gosh, like I can't even necessarily trust my doctor to give me the information that I need to make an educated decision about my child's health. So I started down a rabbit hole of discovering the history of vaccines, their ingredients, their side effects, the slew of conflicts of interest when we talk about the actual business side of that. So I was pregnant with my 3rd baby, and I was deciding whether or not I was going to continue doing this to my children. And that was just before COVID.
Mm.
And so I would say that challenging that, not only with my doctor, but with my family, who all of a sudden didn't understand why I didn't want to continue giving my children these life-saving measures
Right.
in their life,
Yeah.
was one of the biggest moments for me to advocate and then trust my intuition on it, because you don't know what you don't know, which I give everyone, compassion for. We don't know. I didn't know. So once I knew,
Yeah.
then I wanted to do different and do better by my children. I came to realize that I was their biggest advocate, that I couldn't just outsource that to even doctors or even other family members, that I, as their mother, had to do the research, the due diligence, so that I could make the best decision for my babies. And then it kind of just spiraled after that,
Yeah.
with COVID happening, And I saw very quickly the slippery slope of mandates and restrictions, and then the psyop of, blaming a certain group of people for um, things that just weren't true. And so the timing of that couldn't have been more perfect, because I already had all this ammunition, I felt like, in my belt of, oh, I know what's coming down the pipe with this virus. And it was another vaccine. So I'm glad that I had the awareness before that happened to be able to stand up with the knowledge that I had gathered the few years prior, and be able to advocate for myself, my family, and then those around me as well. Like, I was showing up at all the things to continue using my voice. But yeah, pulling my kids out of school, understanding that the public school system is grooming us to do the 9 to 5, follow rules, to suppress parts of ourselves that make us who we are, and my kids were out of that system for a good chunk of their, I don't know, like early childhood education. And we were a part of an alternative school community that we absolutely loved. Like, it was just a small knit, tight community of people who kind of, felt the same as us. And they put a lot of emphasis on outdoor time and self-trust and self-exploration, and, what are your strengths in this personality versus this personality. And I was very honored and grateful to be a part of that school and that community for as long as we were, until it stopped working for us. And then I had to make a decision, and I couldn't continue homeschooling at that point. So they're back in the public education system, but we have so much knowledge, and they have so much knowledge walking into that I don't fear at all that they're going to be influenced by any sort of, like, my 3 children are all incredibly defiant in their own ways. Like, I'm like, there's no way that with the level of critical thinking these children have, that they're going to be influenced by any, outside systems. Like, not, especially with me as their mom. So I feel very confident. I mean, we live in this world, they're going to be, navigating these systems until they crumble, and they have to know how to do that too, without creating the whole separation of, oh, like the muggles, the other, the strange people. It's like, yes, they might not be as aware, but they're still humans. And we still need to offer them compassion and patience, even though they see me get frustrated sometimes. It's still the reminder of, we have to integrate with all of these humans, whether they're awake or not.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And one thing that I discovered in my own journey of going through, I kept getting more and more alternative in where I was teaching. And one thing I think that was a common theme that I wondered about what the outcome would be was always that, like, we can create these tight knit communities and we can all be on the same value system. And I think that's amazing, from what we talk about to the activities that we do, from, the decisions that you make around food or like medical autonomy. Like, I think that's all great and amazing to feel so at home in a place. And I also wonder what happens when children in an alternative school, if they are not given some level of exposure to the rest of the world that may not have the same level of decision making, conscious awareness, critical thinking skills. Like, what happens in those situations where you're kind of like, oh, so and so came home from school and said that Susie thinks this about that. Like, I've never heard about that before. And you're like, okay, so I guess every parent's going to navigate that. But, like, isn't that beautiful that then you have been gifted an opportunity to talk about that from your lens and from what you feel is best for your child, to get them to start thinking about, oh yeah, so Susie has a different perspective than you. Did you know that? Like, versus going to a school where everyone's on the same page, you're never met with adversity. It kind of feels like, what are we doing here? Like, are we just keeping, like, our children just like little monks that, like, never...
Let me tell you, in conscious communities, there's lots of adversity. There's lots of friction. There's lots of There's lots,
Yeah.
especially when you get intimate with people.
Yeah.
And if there's not healthy boundaries, there's a lot of lines that are crossed, and um, professionalism and
Mm-hmm.
etiquette. And so, but I do agree with you, at least with the alternative school that we were a part of. Yes, all of us were aware and awake to the same psyop that we were all,
Right.
kind of forced into. But having people on the other side of that table come into your life and yeah, maybe speak on what they think, and coaching my children on how to handle people having a radically different
Right.
perspective than them, not just, minor things. So it's incredibly important, to a skill to have, if we want to build a generation that, is walking through their adulthood with communication skills, with the ability to emotionally regulate and have awareness around their nervous system and how their nervous system plays into someone triggering you because they don't believe the same things as you. They don't see it your way. I mean, this now, I obviously wasn't taught these skills as a child. This is all new because we're finally realizing that this is important
Mm-hmm.
to building a healthier future and in human society. So this generation of kids, is going to be one of the first with like, oh, I do breath work and I meditate and I do yoga because that regulates my nervous system. And I need that to be able to walk in this world and not get triggered constantly by the differing lifestyles, because there's always going to be there. Like
Mm-hmm.
everyone's going to have different lifestyles regardless of how evolved we get, right? Or how aware we get. Everyone's going to be living differently. So it's been great to talk to my children about recognizing their own, even at this young age, like recognizing their own responses to things, and making them aware of, hey, you're overtired. Hey, you're hungry, and this is why you're being activated so much right now. And again, there's a balance with that. Like, I'm not going to make my children neurotic about themselves, right? But it's just giving them the tools and the tool kit to walk through this life with, in hopes that they can lead well, and they can lead with respect and integrity for all people. Um, I'm hoping that our species continues to, I don't know, move out of bad behaviors. Like, I don't know, our war is always going to happen,
Yeah.
probably. Right? Like, and it can happen in a small community, right? Like, you can have massive falling outs because
Yeah.
of differing perspectives on one thing. You could agree on all of these things,
Right.
the one thing that is like, actually, I'm not compromising my integrity on that, and now I have to exit this community.
Yeah.
So, but it's just we all learn from each other.
Yeah. Everything is a gift. And you're like,
All of it is a gift.
God's like, yep, here you go. I put this. This is going to be challenging. This is going to be hard, and you are going to learn and evolve through this. And so sorry, but there is no way around that. You have to move through it. Good luck. Like, I trust that you have the capacity to do this and to speak your truth and to get in touch with your heart and what you need to do, and have a boundary. Maybe like some people, they have a boundary for the first time in their life.
I
Like,
never was taught about that.
that's something that you need to do. And a lot of people are taught that, like, well, if I have a boundary, it's their problem. It's like, no, it's you. You set that boundary. And if it is crossed, it is your job to walk away. Boundaries have nothing to do with anyone else. You just kind of let them know and be like to your neighbor, hey, I'm putting up a fence.
Right.
I'd love if you could respect and we could come to an agreement about this fence.
Right.
But if you're not okay with this and we're going to be in a huge conflict, maybe I have to walk away from, where I live, or maybe we have to decide where that boundary goes, and I might have to change it up and things like that. And so going back to the point of like being in community, finding what it's like to have these different levels of thought and values right in front of you and have to deal with it. And it's a beautiful new generation that's going to have this information. And I think the whole idea around freedom, and we'll talk about this, is just like you are free to do whatever you want as long as you do not infringe on anyone else's ability to do what they want. Or as soon as you start infringing on other people's rights and freedoms, and like really understanding that to its core is, yeah, you are free to do whatever.
Free will, baby.
Yep. Like that is again,
God-given gift.
A gift for us to try to navigate, because it's not always easy to make these big decisions and not step on toes and like, oh my goodness.
It's a huge responsibility.
Yes. Yeah. Hey friends, quick little interruption. You have something to say, something real, something that could change lives, but instead, you're stuck Googling how to edit, how to post, and how to make your podcast actually go somewhere. You're overwhelmed, second guessing every step, and wondering if it's even worth it. That's where I come in. I help entrepreneurs and creatives launch and manage powerful podcasts that actually grow their audience and build their business. No more guessing, no more burnout. Just you showing up to speak while I handle the rest. I manage top-ranked shows around the world. Editing done, strategy covered, social content handled. You record the magic and I take it from there. So if you're ready to finally make your podcast work for you and share your story with the people who need it most, go to carlybutlermedia.com and book a call. You don't have to figure this out alone. Now back to the episode.
Responsibility. And I love talking about it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's just it's really what sets us apart from animals.
Yep.
And our ability to reflect on ourselves and situations, and then have the freedom to make a different choice.
Mm-hmm.
And also I've been really diving into A Course in Miracles and really understanding that we always have essentially two choices, fear or love, and to really offer up my fears to a higher power to say, help me see this from the lens of love. And, because it's one kind of small step between fear up to love. And also realizing that I don't actually have to do it all on my own. Like I can give my burdens to a higher power, to God, and just say, I actually can't carry all of this right now. So I'm going to give all of it to you. And I trust that you're going to guide me to where it all needs to go. And I mean, answered prayers is a small shift and a softening from defensiveness into compassion, into empathy. And it's like a very subtle shift of an actual softening of your heart. So again, that's really hard for a lot of people to do when they're so attached still and identified with our, the ego and the part of us that wants to protect us from everything, even from humility. Of like, we just hang on to our pride like it's going to save our life. Like, I can't possibly admit that I was wrong because then I'm worth nothing. And it's like, let's just bring some humility back, and you can admit that you're wrong and still be worthy of love.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I think maybe that's the experience, was that they did let go, and it was, or whatever human experience you're having, is that like when you do let go of your ego and you do get hurt, and like, the experience, you're supposed to feel all of that, the letting go of humility, the holding on to it, like that is, you get a choice what you want to hold on to, like power to you. And if you can learn to let go, like there's magic there, I promise.
Exactly.
So I wanted to ask, back to like free will, I want to find out more about your definition of freedom, because it's so multifaceted and layered. And how does freedom feel, breathe, live in your life?
I would have to say that freedom is nobody telling me what to do unless they want you to tell me what to do. Yeah, freedom is no one telling me what to do with my life, with my body. Is, I would say, like the base definition of freedom. So yeah, from religion to government to a boss to family members, placing expectations or rules that, aren't aligning with my heart and soul, that's not freedom to me. Like, I have a lot of problem with organized religion because there are things I don't agree with that they preach. So I'm very aware and careful of like hierarchies and how they can benefit us if it's done well. And the only person that comes to mind right away is Jesus Christ. Like, if you look at him as a character in a movie or a book or a story, um, someone like him who had a following, I mean, I'm still learning a lot more about him because I haven't really dived into, him above and beyond what kind of like everyone knows. But if you look at him and what he taught and what he stood for, and at the time it was, I mean, it's radical now. I mean, maybe not as much as when he was alive, but it was such a radical concept what he was teaching people. And that's why his following was not large. And this actually came to me the other day. It's like the rebels that are preaching connection to God as your North Star and as your guide, typically aren't those who have massive followings. Because if you look at him and his teachings and his small following of people, and then you compare that even with a church and the hierarchy in churches. I mean, for the longest time, women were not allowed to even preach the Bible. I mean, that to me signals a lot of patriarchy, a lot of male dominance, a lot of women threaten me, so we're not even going to let them talk about God. So right away, that doesn't make sense to me at all. So even in churches who are still preaching Jesus's story and his teachings can still distort it into this hierarchy, ego-based, control, oppressive system that you have to have the awareness and the discernment around as an individual to recognize that, to recognize where they're actually distorting his real message.
Right.
And I think someone as humble and as not driven and controlled by his ego. I mean, to me, the ego is something that helps us survive. It's the form identity that we have here in this world, right? And the other side of us is divine, is divinity, is God. We have these two conflicting sides. They both play a role and they both serve a purpose. But in something like a church where the ego wants to dominate and control, that soul message that I felt, the frequency of Jesus Christ that he carried gets lost in this distorted ego. Let's control, let's manipulate, let's tell people how to live, let's shame them, let's do this and that. So when it comes to hierarchies, you need to be like someone like Jesus Christ who is so grounded in their divinity and in their soul and has their ego completely in check as like a small aspect of his form in this world, did not dictate his life. That's the only way I could see any sort of hierarchy working. And I just don't think we're at a space collectively as a species where a lot of our leaders leading people are there yet. They're still very much driven by ego, and can become quickly distorted and lose the power that they have in leading others to greatness, hopefully. I mean, Donald Trump is an egomaniac. Like, as honest and unfiltered as that guy is, he's completely driven by ego. There's no, I mean, you can smell it.
Yeah.
And Trudeau as well. Like, these aren't leaders. These are egomaniacs who are drunk on power, who are altogether quite uneducated, in my opinion. I mean, Donald Trump, of course, has his business background, but I wouldn't look at these two individuals and be like, yeah, I look up to them.
Right.
I want to be like them.
Yeah.
Sorry, no. There's a very few people that I have come across in my life where I genuinely look up to them and want to to be more like in the ways of how they walk through this world.
Mm-hmm.
So they're rare. They are very rare.
Yeah, and they're definitely not the guys at the top right now.
No. And
No.
that's what boggles my mind is I'm like, I keep questioning, like, are we ever going to get there? Like, I mean, Jesus Christ was crucified for trying,
Yeah.
right? He was like, no, there's other ways. And they were like, we gotta kill this guy. We can't have him threatening our empire and our egos here. So it's like, are we ever going to allow someone with that much grace and humility and love and, I don't know, I guess belief maybe in the human spirit? Like,
Yeah.
are we ever gonna, I mean, Martin Luther King comes to mind
Yeah.
as an example of someone like that. Again, murdered, right?
Yeah.
Like,
well, and I think you can almost like, if you're living in a place of ego, and I can resonate with this because I've been in that place where someone is so humble, kind, like even if they've like you've wronged them or you're in a situation with them and they're like, it's almost like when they're that heart-centered, if you are operating in ego, you find them very frustrating. Like you meet people and you're like, how are you so unbothered? I'm bothered that you are so unbothered. And then you realize like, oh, this is what it means to operate from a place of like heart-led openness where you hear other people's perspectives and you like hear it. You operate in humility. You've put your ego aside. But if like, I know that there's been like years before that I've met people like this and I'm like, I'm frustrated by them because it's like, how do I get there? How are you so, and they're showing me, they're mentoring. And until you can flip that perspective and be like, oh, I want to be more like that. Let me take what you're doing. And even if I can exemplify that to the tiniest degree, that's a win.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I still struggle with that. There are people that, especially certain women that trigger me and I have to sit with why.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not women that are egotistical. There's some women that, I almost resonate with so much that they might be more, on the surface more successful than me, right? So they're triggering the, why can't I speak like them and be as successful as them? And there's like um, this comparison, right? And the ego loves to compare.
Mm-hmm.
So it's again recognizing that there's space for all of us. And again, like if you have something that's calling you to speak on, which I feel like I have in my life, even if it's a small amount of people that hear you and it affects them in a good way or great way, then that's enough for me. I mean, I don't think that Jesus was like, I need to get 10 million followers. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He carried the frequency. He genuinely wanted to teach others about what he came to this earth knowing. He remembered before everyone around him remembered.
Yeah.
And he didn't try. And that's the same with like Eckhart Tolle is another big one for me. He has a massive following and he's the most Winnie the Pooh type individual ever.
Yeah.
And he didn't try to gain that popularity or gain the attention. He just started small groups, like literally 15 people would come and like hear him speak. And then word just spread. He was like, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's talking about the power of now and that nothing else exists except for this moment right now. That's mind blowing to me. And then, of course, Oprah caught wind and she helped him explode. But that wasn't an ambition of his to like, let me get my message out there. And it was just him grounded in a frequency that just was like pulling people towards him because, again, it's a remembrance. So it's like people say things and there's something deep inside of you that's like, I've heard that before. I know this. There's something in you that's like, I know this and I don't know why I know it, but I want to learn more about it because there's something in me that's familiar here.
Yeah.
And then that just starts to build with a remembrance of like, oh, I remember now the truth of all that is like in this life and why we're here. And, so yeah, the ego is sneaky.
Yeah.
A very sneaky part of our psyche.
And I feel like that if we could define freedom here in this conversation, it's almost as if I'm defining it, like you said, baseline. Like, don't tell me what to do with my life, with my family, as like I'm going to make decisions for myself, and you are free to do that. And on the flip side of that, I think we're defining here that being stuck in ego is what keeps us bound and is what keeps us from becoming unbound and experiencing true freedom. Like that ego is like your ego is, you can picture it like a little cage, and you just sit in there through society. They like put you further and further and further down into your ego.
Yeah.
And until you can identify that, you will struggle to find that freedom.
True liberation.
Yes, true liberation. There you go.
You nailed it. That's it right
Yeah.
there. Yeah. And that, I believe, part of my mission is to try to help people understand this. I think dancing is a beautiful gateway into some sort of liberation, because you have to truly be free in your dance. You have to not give a shit what people think about what you look like. And a lot of people do care what they look like when they dance, and it prevents them from dancing. And I'm like, no, like get on the dance floor and close your eyes and drop the egoic care of the cage that you're in. Like you're in, you put yourself in a cage and you say you can't dance, and everyone can dance. And it's such a beautiful expression of joy. Like try to dance when you're in a shit mood. It's not gonna be the same as when you're in joy. Yeah. I mean, it's good still to be like, okay, like let's move my body. I'm feeling all this density. Like let's try to move. But there's such a difference in your dance when you are forcing it out of this, like, I'm not in a great space right now, versus like, I'm happy to be alive and I'm going to dance to express that. Like there's such a beautiful expression of joy and presence.
Yeah, I just had my friend who's a DJ on the podcast, and we talked all about how like dance floors are just such a point of like liberation. Like if you can get in there and just close your eyes and be transported into a total other dimension, and like just, you just, all ego melts away. All of that is just, and if you can be in that present moment, I mean, tomorrow you got to wake up and go to work or whatever it is, but like in that moment, that sense of freedom is so beautiful. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's like an active meditation.
Yeah.
And it's a huge part of my life and my calling is to dance. And it's brought such medicine to my life. It really has. So I'm very grateful for dance.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like more therapists, more like help healers, like that's the diagnosis. Like, that's the prescription.
Totally.
To your anxiety, to your energy, to your stuff. Like, go dance. And I'm going to describe it for you there, because
it's free therapy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And singing as well.
Yeah.
And laughing. Like all of this is stuff that isn't supported enough in our society, like even in schools, like why aren't they teaching this? But this is important. Dance, singing, laughing, meditating, breathing, nervous system. All of this is really important. And it's not taught anywhere in the public system because it's so liberating.
Yeah.
And empowering.
You can't have all these free range children run around here.
You can't be a
crazy ideas.
Little adult that wants to pursue desires and dreams, and
you need dysregulation to control.
Yeah, we want you medicated. We want you 9 to 5. We want you sad. We want you really sad because you're easier to manipulate and control that way. So no, thank you. No, thank you.
Hard pass.
Hard pass on that. So this is what I'm instilling in my children to be leaders of.
Yeah.
This fully embodied living of being in your body and listening to your body too is something we're not really taught. One of the most profound things that I was ever told a few years ago by a friend of mine, she said, your body will tell you. And I was like, what? Oh my God. Like no one has ever said anything that directed me inward to find the answer of how my body feels, whether it feels expansive or contractory. Like there's such a difference. It's subtle, like a subtle shift, and everything now I refer to my body as the best communicator because it takes everything. It's your intuition, it's your heart, it's your nervous system, it's your past experience, it's your goals, your dreams. And it tells you, like, is this a yes for you or is this a no for you? And once you start to decipher that, you have this internal guide that never leaves. And again, we're not taught this. This is important stuff.
Turns out you have all the tools already within you. Yeah, there you go.
I wasn't lying. So, yeah, it's been very liberating for me to come home to that realization. And as you spoke about earlier, with the contrast of, people in our life that, yeah, might put us through something that is painful. Without it, we wouldn't be forced to look within.
Yeah.
Right? When we continually look outside ourselves for the answer, for value, for validation, or outsourcing that all the time, you actually don't belong to yourself ever. And I never realized that either. I was like, oh, I want to belong to myself, so much so that even if on the surface, this decision doesn't make logical sense and everyone's going to have an opinion about it, and it's not going to be, maybe it's not going to be supportive, that I know that I can trust myself enough that I'm being guided by something bigger than my ego that I can lean into. And I think that things are only going to expand and get better and better if I do that. Like the price you pay for not following your heart, your inner guidance, like even with you in this beautiful endeavor, like the price you would have paid not doing that is you would have been selling your soul to an extent.
Yeah.
And it would be gnawing at you.
And it was.
It was.
It's like in my stomach, like before I left for work, I was like, why does my stomach hurt every time I want to go to work?
Right.
Like I was just like, that's just a regular part of life. And it's like, turns out that is not correct. And it was trying to talk to me and tell me something. And it's like, that's why I feel like even with kids, when they're nervous, like what's the number one thing that happens when they're nervous to do something and they don't want to do something? They get a tummy ache. They feel sick. And then we're like, as a teacher, like I have, and I'm so sorry to all the children who I've invalidated because they had a tummy ache and it wasn't just an excuse to get out of something. It was, but it was their body being like, I'm nervous. I can't do this. I don't want to do this. This is a no for me. And I don't want to do this. And you're like, oh, you're just, oh my God.
Yeah.
I repent for all of the children that I have told, like, oh, it's just a tummy ache. It'll go away. I'll be like, no, that's real. It's super real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up, if someone is feeling stuck in their ego, if they are just being totally controlled by this, if they aren't experiencing a life of freedom, but they feel maybe it's something in their body, maybe there's a whisper somewhere, where would you suggest that someone starts to try to find out what this is and where they're being called to go?
I suggest that you talk to God. I suggest that you pray. I suggest that you ask God to come into your life because he loves us. And I use he for the lack of, I'm not using they.
Yeah.
Okay. Not doing that.
Great.
You can say she if you want. She, he, whatever. Loves us so much that it will not violate our free will and just storm into our life and take over. You have to ask. That's what I've learned. So it, he, she is waiting there to be asked to come in and lead you, guide you to where you're supposed to be. I mean, I've always struggled with, my will versus divine will or God's will. I always like, what does that mean, God's will? Does that mean everything's predetermined and predestined? I'm just like this puppet in this puppet show. And it's like, no, but now that I can feel the way that the divine communicates to me through my body, through my intuition, I definitely can feel when I'm aligned with something and it's serving me versus when I'm not. And that has only happened very recently in my life. And I believe it's because I've asked God to come in And because I now look for my value in God and not in other people. So if other people don't see my value, which boggles my mind because I know what I bring to the table, I bring a lot of goodness to people's lives, because I want to. It's really, really important that I bring goodness and value to people's lives. So I know the value that I bring and I offer. And when there's people that don't see that, rather than it shaking me and like, oh, maybe I'm not valuable. Maybe I'm not, like, I don't understand why they're treating me this way. If they see my value, they wouldn't treat me this way. And now I don't look to other people or anyone or any job or any status or anything to give me my value. I know I'm valuable because I came from God, and I walk with that knowing.
Mm.
And I'm still being refined and still being purified and still remembering, this, truth. I would say an absolute truth, not like an objective truth or subjective truth. But I think that's been the biggest liberator for me, is knowing I can always rely on a higher power to be there and to hold me through whatever I'm going through. And I've seen that proof countless times in my life, that this presence is there. I'm not alone. Nobody is alone. And that we're all here. I actually think that God is an eternal child. I think that all he does is create and play and love. I think that's all he wants to do. And I think that we are his children, and like any good parent would want for their children. Like, I want my children to thrive. I want them to create and play and love. Like, that's what I want for my children. So I don't think that God wants anything different for us. So as long as I'm listening to that guidance, and I'm in alignment, then I'm going to create and play and love. And that's what I'll do until the day I die. So that would be my advice for getting out of your ego, is surrendering your ego to God,
Mm-hmm.
and discerning what is your soul's voice, which I believe you can feel in your heart space, versus your ego's voice, which is predominantly in our heads, the one that likes to criticize everything and everyone and ourselves, and um, tell us things that are not true. And we don't want that one driving the car. Right. We want the soul's voice to drive the car. And that is a frequency that people can feel. I'm really honored if anyone's like, I don't know why I just told you all that, but I felt really safe with you. I just like told you all of this. And I was like, wow, that's like a huge compliment. If you feel safe enough to talk to me about personal things that you haven't told anyone before, I'm just complimented that you feel that way about me. And then I hold that sacred. And I hold humanity sacred, even though they really piss me off sometimes. I want the best for them at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I really do. So that's my advice.
I love that. And honestly, it's so funny that you say that, just because I have been practicing that exact advice. And at first, like, I remember when there was years ago, I was very in depth with a yoga community, and I'll share this story because it could be something that other people relate to, is just like the way of saying, like, to say the word God. I could not say the word. It was like not a part of my family growing up. Like, we did not go to church. It was organized religion was not part of my life. And in fact, very like pushed away. And like a self-proclaimed like atheist. And so I think it's really interesting that now that I've brought that in, but the way that I first started bringing that in was just being like, source, universe. But it like, and it was enough of a stepping stone to then be like, okay, it's God. Like, just like, I can't not, it's, and someone also described it to me, like, if you have a hard time, like, visualizing God and it doesn't work because it's been like muddied.
Yeah.
You can also just think of yourself, like your higher version of yourself who is nurturing your current self. Like, you don't have to think about God as Jesus. It can be anything. It's not the man in the clouds. Like, it's not the way organized religion has taught us. It can just be what you make of it. And then to talk to that energy can be humbling and beautiful, and it will show you the way. Like, I am living both of us are, and so many people can attest to this, like living proof that like, if you ask, there will be guidance that will come.
Absolutely. Ask and you shall receive.
Yeah.
He's serious about that.
Yeah.
But I completely agree with you. I think that, because it's just been, the word God has been so misused.
Yeah.
Not always for good. So I was on that path as well. So it's interesting that we're both at a place where we're at peace with using really any word. But I keep going back to God for some reason recently. It just feels right, I guess, in my body right now. But thanks for sharing that. That's very cool. That's very cool. Because I was very much against organized religion.
Right.
Like I tried, like my husband was a pastor's son, and had, like, his grandfather was a pastor, his uncle was a pastor, very, they're Christian. And when I met him at a youth group, so I didn't go to the youth group. My girlfriend was like, this Hawkeye is there. You got to come see him. Okay, I'm coming. And I did. And so, I've been with him since I was 16, married at 21. And, he was religious, but it was very much expected. It wasn't like rooted in like, this is what I want to do. But I gave it a solid try. Christianity.
Yeah.
Went to church, was in the choir, and I was like, there's something not sitting right with me in the way that you guys are talking about this. And now I realize it was the feminine missing. The only feminine really being his mother, Mary. And I was like, there's an Once I got pregnant for the first time, and going through that experience, oh my gosh, the realization of what women are just hits you like a ton of bricks. Like I was like, I'm this actual portal that we bring souls through. And I just was thinking, I was like, why are we not worshiping women? Why have we like seldom worshiped women collectively? It's always been men in charge and patriarchy. And I'm like, but what I just did deserves worship and deserves awe and reverence for what I just did with God here.
Yeah.
And that's when I started really seeing the power of women in their entire beingness. And then I started learning about, how we're actual oracles and how we are so connected to God in the spirit realm, and that there's an intuition that women have that is very different than men. And we have to have this intuition because we primarily are protecting our young, right? So our safety is very heightened. We're always very aware of our surroundings. There's like this very special intuition that women have, and I believe it's to protect our babies that men don't have as like fine-tuned. I believe they have intuition, but it's just different and it serves a different purpose. So yes, I think that discovering Mary Magdalene for me was like, she's the missing piece to Jesus's story. This makes sense to me, that he saw her as his divine equal, because that during that time women were actual slaves, right? Like you didn't get to vote, you barely sat at tables, like you were a slave, that you were abused, and that was it. And Jesus was like, no, she's actually my divine counterpart. She's equal to me in her divinity. And I'm going to tell her things that I'm not going to tell you guys to prove that I actually trust her more than you guys. And the men didn't really like, either of them didn't like that, right? After his passing. So once she came in, I was like, okay, this makes sense now.
Beautiful. Yeah. So if people want to find out more about you, we are going to kind of start to wrap up the conversation. Is there anything else that you want to share? Any last words, bits of wisdom? And then I'd love for you to share where, if anyone is inspired by this conversation, how can they get in touch with you?
Oh man. Well, I mean, I commend you for following your heart, and it always inspires me to see anybody follow their heart and be an entrepreneur and believe in themselves enough to be like, if they can do it, I can do it. And we have the ability to teach ourselves anything, in this part of the world. We are privileged in that we have access to YouTube University and lots of ways to teach ourselves to do anything, really. So I commend you for doing that and leading the way in a conversation about these things, about freedom and what that means. And I just think that the more we can dialogue about these important aspects of our humanity, better, and contributing to hopefully our collective ascension, our collective expansion, and creating more heaven on earth. I truly don't understand why anyone would want to create anything else except for heaven on earth. But of course, we need the contrast. So, if you want to find me and all of the deep talks that I like to give, I'm on Instagram, Justine Realized, just one giant word. And you can find me on the Arcane Muse Collective, the YouTube channel, the Twitch channel, if you're on there. I will be taking a pause for summer, for sure, spend some time with my kids, but what will come after that, it will evolve in the fall, and I will never cease to have these kinds of conversations. So, the Arcane Muse Collective is on Instagram, and then my personal Instagram is the easiest spot.
Awesome. Well, I will put all of that in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here and sharing all your insights. My goodness, I feel like every episode we just dive into a new version of freedom. And one of my hopes in these conversations is that there is a ripple effect just by you and I sitting here having this conversation. I trust in God that this vibration is not just staying in this room, and obviously it's in listeners' ears, but that's the whole point, is for this to go out and to just by having this conversation, even if no one listened to this, which I hope they do because it was beautiful. There is power in just having these beautiful conversations. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate you as well. All right, friends, that wraps up another episode of Becoming Unbound. Thank you so much to Justine for coming on the podcast. That was inspiring. If you aren't sort of motivated to go out and just understand where you might be holding yourself back, maybe get that ego in check and just tap in, feel what's going on there, and maybe get a little closer to becoming unbound. If this episode resonated with you at all, leave a comment down below, like, subscribe, send it to a friend who might just need this exact conversation. It helps the podcast to grow and for us to reach more freedom-minded individuals. And your love and your comments help this show continue to reach individuals all throughout the world. So thank you so much, and tune in next time for another episode of Becoming Unbound.